Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on your MTN Statewide News. I'm Casey Conlon in for Janelle Slade. Our top story, Broadwater County Sheriff Wynn Meehan says the state crime lab has determined the identity of a body found south of Townsend last Friday as 48-year-old Philip Pites. Pites was listed as a missing endangered person who was last seen December 2nd in the Helena Walmart parking lot. Meehan says a rancher discovered the body in a field just off Highway 287, about 4 miles south of Townsend. He says the body had been there for a long time, so it was difficult to identify a manner of death, but he believes it was not a natural death. Meehan says the Lewis and Clark County Sheriff's Office and the Montana Division of Criminal Investigation will also be involved in what he called a complex investigation.
I'm hoping that people will see this and say, hey, I remember, or I saw, or something, and they will share it with us, and we can move forward to try to find the family some answers on what happened to their loved one.
If you have any information on this case, you're asked to contact Meehan or lead investigator Deputy Michelle Frost at the Broadwater County Sheriff's Office. A man was injured after a pickup truck crashed into a house in Great Falls yesterday afternoon. It happened on the north side of the 200 block of Skyline Drive Northeast just after 1 p.m. Initial reports indicate that the pickup drove through the front yard of the house and crashed into the corner. Damage to the truck appears to be substantial. A man believed to be the driver was placed on a stretcher and into an ambulance. He was conscious and talking at the time. Utility crews were also at the scene as there were reports that a gas line may have been ruptured. There is no word yet on the cause of the accident. All right, we go to weather now with Ed McIntosh, and after some light disturbances yesterday, Ed, it looks like we're in for nothing but sunshine.
That's right, and the sunshine is really going to warm us up, Casey, and that's going to be part of our concern as we start getting into the weekend and the first part of next week. We've been talking about the mountain snowpack running right now anywhere from just about 101 to 161% of where we would normally have for this time of the year, and that means a lot of snow to be able to melt. With the warming temperatures, it's starting to affect stream flows a bit. Now you see all the green dots, that's about average stream flow, but some of those blue shaded regions starting to show where we're getting a bit more flow than we would normally have for this time of the year. Take a look at the forecast to see how that could affect that as we start getting into the coming week. More coming up in a while.
All right, thank you, Ed. To coronavirus news, Montana officials have announced 2 new positives, including the first in Wheatland County, as well as another in Yellowstone. That makes 77 total for the county and 444 for the entire state. The state certified 19 additional recoveries in the last 24 hours, as well as 1 fewer hospitalization. The total number of deaths still sits at 14, while testing numbers have gone over 12,000. Governor Steve Bullock will hold a press conference today at 2 p.m. with COVID-19 updates. Dr. Mark Mental, president of the Montana Medical Association, will also participate. We'll carry that live across all MTN stations. Well, the state's largest union is urging members to encourage school districts around the state to remain closed for the remainder of the academic year. The Montana Federation of Public Employees, which includes teachers, wants districts to continue distance learning. On Wednesday, Governor Bullock issued his plans for phased reopening, which allows schools to reopen on or after May 7th. MFPE says schools are not designed for social distancing, and administration should use this time to make a plan to allow students to safely return in the fall. Earlier this month, the Office of Public Instruction, the Board of Public Education, and the Montana Public Education Center advised districts to continue distance learning through the end of the year. School District 2 in Billings will have a final decision on Monday at their regularly scheduled board meeting. The Blackfeet Reservation, meanwhile, will remain closed through the end of May, according to tribal leaders. Because they are considered a sovereign government, the reservation does not have to abide by Governor Bullock's phased reopening plan. A curfew is currently in place from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and alcohol sales remain open from noon to 8 p.m. Tribal leaders say they are doing what's right for their people.
Indian people, we hold our elders and our children near and dear, and people with compromised immune systems, and that's what I think drives this, is our whole entire being of Blackfoot people, Blackfeet people. We want to keep each other safe, and so that's why we are going to continue to keep the reservation closed.
Tribal offices are closed until May 31st and say they will revisit when the time comes. Meanwhile, places of worship will be the first to open under Phase 1 of Governor Bullock's plan this Sunday with reduced capacity. However, many around the state say they are still going to wait due to social distancing guidelines. Bishop Michael Warfel with the Great Falls Billings Diocese says a number of his churches won't open right away. He says some of the larger churches have more members, making social distancing more of a challenge. And many church members, including a number of pastors, fall into the vulnerable age category.
Some of the churches are equipped to really open their doors this coming Sunday and to follow the basic spacing requirements and the hygiene, cleansing, and follow those types of protocols. Others are going to need a week or two to put things into action.
Lead pastor Nate Swanson with New City Church in Great Falls says due to the large number of church members in his congregation, they'll wait until phase 3 of the governor's plan to start in-person services, and their offices will reopen during phase 2. Homeless shelters continue to be a vital resource during the coronavirus outbreak. Butte's shelter reports it has served many more people and meals since March. The new co-directors of the shelter, Sid and Brayton Erickson, say they average between 50 and 60 people staying at the shelter and have increased giving away free meals by 30%. Shelter practices social distancing measures and has had plenty of support from the community.
The support we've gotten from restaurants and foundations and businesses has been just super humbling and very kind and just generous.
The directors took over the shelter last month, right when the stay-at-home order was given. Red Ants Pants in White Sulphur Springs is known for their women's workwear, and their Made in America approach is especially important as they pivot to providing personal protective equipment. Employees are busy sewing general use cotton masks. $1 from each mask sold goes to the Marr County Community Foundation for COVID-19 relief efforts. Red Ants Pants is also partnering with Bear Paw Outfitters Manufacturing in Billings. They're taking orders for masks and medical gowns to help fill the gap.
We're working on 1,000 gowns for Billings Clinic right now. A lot of interest from other hospitals. We've been making the general use face masks for Highway Patrol and Forest Service and some of the mines. Colstrip just called Talon Energy. They put it in order. So we're doing everything we can to step up and make sure folks have the proper PPE. It's just what we do, right? If we have the tools or the supplies or the means, this is especially what Montanans do, is pitch into an effort and be good neighbors.
Organizers had to cancel the annual Red Ants Pants Music Festival this year. Calhoun says there will be a huge economic impact on White Sulphur Springs and Marr County. She says they're working to innovate and host other types of events where appropriate. Well, the pandemic is shutting down one of Yellowstone National Park's most popular attractions. The Old Faithful Inn will be closed for the entire summer season. The same thing goes for all sit-down restaurants in the park. Xanterra, the company in charge of running concessions, says they won't resume normal operations until at least June 15th. The Old Faithful Inn isn't the only lodging spot dealing with COVID-19 fallout. All of the park's lodges will either close or move forward with a revised schedule. The grand reopening of Billings Alberta Bear Theater in the fall is also in jeopardy. Theater officials hope to reach a decision by the end of next week. The theater had planned to show off the nearly $14 million remodel at a special black tie event on September 20th. The construction project is still on schedule to be completed by the end of June. Well, still to come on the MTN Noon News. A tough call had to be made to cancel Montana's annual East-West Shrine game. We'll take a look at the decision behind that call. And Ed's up next with the statewide weather forecast.
Cooling off at about average for this time of the year, but over the weekend we start to see a warm up, plenty of sunshine. A few areas, especially for western Montana, you'll pick up some clouds by later tomorrow, but overall we're going to be looking at some very warm readings starting to build in by the time we get into the middle of this coming week. And already we're starting to see a lot of those showers starting to shift across eastern Montana, allowing some breaks of sunshine. Readings are into the 40s, 50s, starting to hit some low 60s as well as we get into the second half of the day. Jordan right now right at 60 degrees, but notice where the showers and thunderstorms are starting to come together. There's plenty of lift in the atmosphere that's available, and then you see these little blue and the silver flickers on the screen. That's where we're starting to see some lightning strikes. This is right around the Billings area up towards Miles City. Glendive will continue to watch some of that activity shift out of northeastern Montana, and also some reports of some small P to BB sized hail out of some of these storms as well. So basically everything's right along this line right now. You can just see how the lightning starts to develop as we got a sufficient amount of lift in the atmosphere to create some of those showers and thunderstorms, at least through the early afternoon and evening. So here's what's going on now. We've got the clear sky towards the west, high pressure areas starting to move in, and while these little pop-up storms will continue through the afternoon, they'll start to ease up this evening, allowing this high pressure area to slide in. This is going to bring a warm up into tomorrow. Most of the highs will be into the 60s to low 70s in central and western Montana eastern Montana. Towards the west, we're going to pick up some of those clouds. That could lead to a few mountain showers and hold your temperatures back just a little bit. But as this disturbance pushes across the region, it flattens out the ridge and just holds the temperatures fairly stable as we start getting through the weekend and early next week. But it's above average temperatures. Now, by the time we get Monday into Tuesday, another disturbance will bring a few showers, but it'll also bring some wind into the mix. By the time we get into Wednesday and Thursday, much warmer than average temperatures as a high pressure ridge moves in, and much of the region will see the warmest temperatures we've seen so far this year. So for the bulk of today, we'll watch those isolated storms slip off into eastern Montana, leaving us into the 50s to mid 60s for the highs. Mainly the 30s overnight. As the sky starts to clear, it's going to let those temperatures start to slide down just a little bit. And then tomorrow, we'll look at 60s for the bulk of the daytime highs, but notice where we're starting to see some of those showers start to slide into western Montana, and even central and portions of the eastern plains will start to pick up some of those showers as we start getting late in the day tomorrow. So the 3-day outlook as we look into western Montana tomorrow, with that next disturbance sliding through, at least some scattered showers. They're going to be very hit and miss, but the temperatures are still up to around seasonal averages. Great Falls and Helena expect a little boost in the temperatures tomorrow before that next disturbance starts to slide in. And then those 60s stick around for the daytime highs. Overnight lows also in the 30s and 40s. So we're going to start to see a warm up even in the morning hours. For areas of southwest Montana, looking at the temperatures taking a pretty good jump tomorrow, 8 to 10 degrees. Isolated showers and thunderstorms there. Glendive, you're seeing those showers and thunderstorms start to develop today, but warmer temperatures by the end of the weekend. And Billings will also see a rise in the temperatures. There's a look at the weather. Back to you, Casey.
All right, thank you, Ed. COVID-19 dealt the Montana sports world two big blows this week. The MHSA officially canceled the spring season Wednesday, and yesterday the 2020 Montana Shrine Game, one of the oldest in the country, was canceled. MTN's Richie Melby spoke with organizers who say the decision wasn't made lightly.
It's some pretty tough phone calls you have to make.
Those phone calls came Thursday afternoon. The Shrine Game Executive Board informing more than 100 players, coaches, and cheerleaders that the July 18th game would not kick off.
We looked at the opportunity to maybe play this game at a smaller level. We looked at potentially moving the game back, but given the situation that most of these kids are playing college football, that wasn't an option. With the players and the coaches and everything, you're putting over 50 people together for a week before you even play the game. So even if we played the game without anybody watching and just TV, you're still creating that risk, and we just can't.
Since 1947, Montana's finest have suited up in the game to raise money for the Shriners Hospital for Children in Spokane, collecting nearly $1 million the past 10 years alone.
This is would have been the 74th straight year. This is one of the oldest high school all-star games in the country. It's the #1 shrine game in the country for fundraising year after year. So the decision did not come lightly, and we just held off to the last minute before we had to make that final decision. We're going to come back bigger and stronger in 2021.
Now, players will still receive their Shrine Game jerseys. Cheerleaders will also be provided gift packages for being selected to compete in the game. Up next, your latest ag news with the Montana Ag Network's Russell Nimitz. Stay with us.
Ranch Report from the Montana Ag Network.
Hi everybody, it's time for your farm and ranch news. Well, Washington insiders say that China is looking to purchase up to 30 million tons of crops from the U.S. to help rebuild its state stockpiles. The Asian country is looking to protect itself from further supply chain disruptions brought on by the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, trade experts say it would also help China make good on its Phase 1 trade agreement promises to buy more U.S. crops. China, they say, is planning to buy approximately 10 million tons of soybeans, 20 million tons of corn, and 1 million tons of cotton. and add them to its state reserves. Now, Reuters says those numbers come from a couple of sources who were actually briefed on the government's plan. And as I said earlier, the bulk of the crops are expected to come from right here in the United States. In some other news, another huge meat plant has been closed indefinitely within the United States. Trade experts say the country is just a few weeks away now from meat shortages. Tyson Foods on Thursday said it was shuttering its beef facility in Pasco, Washington, while team members undergo testing for COVID-19. Now, at least 8 major U.S. meat facilities have seen halts in the space of just a few weeks. The U.S. government also recently pushed out its monthly figures on frozen food inventories, which stood in sharp relief against the backdrop of these closures. Combined pork, beef, and poultry supplies in cold storage facilities now stands equal to roughly 2 weeks of total U.S. meat production. Well, stay with us. We'll have more ag news right after this. Well, the final replacement rule for the controversial Obama-era Waters of the U.S. or WOTUS rule is now published in the Federal Register. The American Farm Bureau Federation's Don Parrish says the new Navigable Waters Protection Rule that replaces WOTUS actually adds clarity in its definitions and exclusions, making farming and ranching easier. Among some of the big wins, he says, for agriculture include exclusions for potholes, ditches, stock ponds, and other land features that fill when it rains, and for prior converted cropland.
We know that impacts a lot of acreage, particularly acreage that is maybe some of our best agricultural lands. We appreciate and support the need to protect true wetlands, but things that were converted back around the turn of the last century, the early 1900s, that have been farmed, that will continue to be farmed, will be some of the most productive agricultural land in the country.
Now, Parrish says Farm Bureau's next focus amid this ongoing coronavirus pandemic is the actual food supply chain itself, and of course, making sure that consumers continue to have an ample food supply. And finally, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association has sent a letter to the USDA urging against payment limitations for cattle producers under the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. NCBA's Vice President of Government Affairs, Ethan Lane, says the economic damage to cattle producers across the country continues to mount due to the COVID-19 crisis. And he says the low payment cap of $125,000 per commodity will prevent many operations, large and small, from receiving enough assistance to soften the blow. NCBA, though, is hopeful that USDA will move quickly to outline additional plans for the $14.4 billion also allocated to damage assistance under the CARES Act, and provide assurance that producers across all segments receive equitable assistance from these very critical funds. Well, that's a look at your farm and ranch news. Have a great day.
All right, thank you, Russell. Okay, here's the fun now. Check out these baby lemurs. They were just born at a zoo in Greece. Unfortunately, the public will have to wait until stay-at-home orders in the country are lifted before they can see them in person. Zoo owner says spring, normally the best season to visit the newborns, but this video is going to have to be the next best thing. What do you think, Ed? Are you in the market for a baby lemur?
I always have to follow the cute animals and the babies and things like that.
We set you up for failure, and I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Showers today, especially across eastern Montana, isolated thunderstorms. But once that wave moves through, we're in for warmer and generally drier conditions through the weekend.